This is the talk show that takes a no-holds-barred approach to politics, where truth and integrity are the standard and the Constitution honored. From Renaissance Studios, this is Champion News Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net, your choice for the conservative voice. Today, our founder, Jack Roeser, and myself have the privilege and the honor of having Col Raymond True from RALC with us. Jack, how are you this morning? Isn't this going to be a great show?
Oh, sure. Some people don't know what RALC stands for. Ray, you going to tell us?
Sure. It stands for the Republican Assembly of Lake County. The Republican Assembly concept was started by Ronald Reagan, and it was a very propitious time that we got started the way we're running now in Lake County. You probably remember the date, 9/11. Well, the first meeting of the new RALC was programmed for September of 2001. Ooh. And we had a lot of discussion among our founders. That was to be our founders' meeting. And there was some talk whether we should actually have a meeting or not after what had happened in New York on 9/11. And we finally decided to have a meeting on 20 September 2001. And the meeting was led by a name you probably remember, Patrick O'Malley, who was a candidate for governor at that time.
Yes.
And we decided not to do any political talking at that first meeting. Everybody, there was about 25 of us there, we stood and sang God Bless America. And that was our first meeting. Yeah. And since then, we've had 135 consecutive meetings, and not a single one has been postponed or modified.
Wow. Colonel, you flew on
C-130s at the end.
C-130s?
C-119s way back.
Yeah,
I had 6,000 hours in a C-130. I got over to Vietnam, and it's kind of an interesting mission. It's a transport mission. We didn't carry any weapons on board, but you go into a lot of interesting places and bring people things they want to have.
Well, those airplanes were made to go into short fields.
The longest production aircraft in the history of the United States Air Force, the C-130, still being produced. I happen to be assigned to the first C-130 unit that got operational control of the airplane at the 745th at Ardmore Air Force Base. In 1956, I was in the unit when the first 130s came in.
You know, I was in my first company that I was starting for a rich man in Chicago, and it was to make aircraft switches, and I was selling that to Lockheed when they were designing the 130, and I forget the name of the guy now, but you know, everybody loved living in those days in the 50s. California was a good place to be.
The Lockheed plant was at California also in those days. Yeah. I think that's where the prototype was actually flown for the first time.
Absolutely, and I designed switches that went into that.
Toggle switches?
You know, all kind. Well, no, mostly landing gear switches.
Oh, okay.
Sealed up things that had to work in nasty environments. But one of the guys I was working with was a marvelous engineer, and he loved California. But when they sent the plant to make the rest of them in Georgia.
Right, Marietta.
Marietta, Georgia. And he went with it, and he was shaking his head one day when I was talking to him, and he says, I hate to leave California, he said, but this airplane is just too good to leave.
Yeah. It's interesting you would mention the landing gear switch, because while the aircraft was under development, there was kind of a raging argument as to whether or not they should put cyclable landing gear on the airplane, because they only lost about 5 knots, because if you look at the airplane, the landing gear is right under the fuselage, and there was only an additional 5 knots of drag. But I guess the Chief of Staff of the Air Force said, I'm not going to build an airplane with fixed landing gear in 1950, and he didn't.
Yeah, that would have made it look like something from the past. Well, that had a fat belly. You would take a big load, and it went in and out of short field.
6 pallets we could put on the airplane. We could drop 42 airborne paratroopers. I dropped thousands of them, and they
well, Raymond, that was then, and this is now, and you've done a big job of organizing conservatives in Lake County. And I know I've been up there to in some of your meetings. And
I know the last time you were at our meeting, you had a unique ending to it, because when the meeting was over, people came up and hugged you. They didn't applaud you, they hugged you.
oh,
And that's the only time I think I've ever seen that happen in one of our meetings. You're very well loved by our group.
I forget what perfume I was using.
Oh boy! Wow, we've gone a little history here, and now Colonel True, you were telling me RALC is kind of an honorary organization to someone we all love and admire. Explain a little bit of the history of the RALC.
Well, Ronald Reagan, when he had 2 tours, of course, of governor of California, and that's when the concept came along. Some of the ways that he described it have come to survive. We like to say that the assembly, Republican Assembly concept, was the right wing of the Republican Party. That's kind of it come to, evolve. But I tell this story that when we started the RALC, people looked on us as kind of far right wing people.
Yes, yeah.
And contemporaneously
I know the feeling.
Now we're actually considered centrist now.
Yeah.
And it's because the atmosphere has changed all around us.
You know, Colonel, I've advertised, because I'm so damned old, I'm 88 years old, and I've taken a lot of punches for being a conservative for many years. And I've said I'm the oldest Tea Party guy in the state. I think maybe you're the second oldest.
Well, it could be. It's been a while. And we have a 4-page application to become a member of the RALC. You don't just send in the box top, but we have a...
Into the air, Junior Birdman.
We have a regular membership committee, and no names for attribution, but people have been turned down that applied to become members of the RALC. Not a lot of them. And we like to focus on the platform, both the national Republican platform
There's
and
way
the
too
state
little
platform.
of that.
That's right.
I don't think the Democratic Party's got a platform. It's...
Well, they have a published platform. I don't think they
do?
follow it, yes.
I never even heard that there was in a filing case somewhere.
You could probably call
to.
the DNC, and they'd be glad to send you 100 copies.
I mean, their motto, their platform is, "We don't want nobody sent."
That's a famous Chicago phrase, right?
If you aren't part of the bunch that's running the contracts both directions, they don't want you. But we've got a very good platform.
I think the biggest problem we had with people wanting to join as far as the platform, we of course asked them, do you follow the Republican platform? And the answer we do not like to hear at all is, well, we follow most of it.
Yeah.
Because when they say they follow most of it, I pursue it and say, well, what parts of it don't you follow? Well, they don't typically like to answer that type of a question.
You know, what you get is political crap. Like the people, pardon me for saying that, but I get a little bit bugged when people find the wrong reasons for success or failure. And Bill Brady failed to be elected as governor of the state of Illinois in the last election. At the start of it, he was ahead in the polls by 15%.
Right.
All of the big wigs at the top of the Republican Party, the donors and the people that were running that end of it, the election end of the party, they all thought that this guy was going to win. I was close to him. I put $250,000 behind Mr. Dillard, and I gave $50,000 to the governor's thing, the national, and a lot more to him. I paid my price of admission to put my opinions into those races.
I remember the famous meeting at Ivanhoe that neither one of us were invited to when they took that poll on who should be governor in the primary race.
Well, they had a determination to do what they wanted to do.
Right.
And even when Governor Christie came in and gave him some advice, I was at that luncheon, but in another meeting, they told Christie that they were sure they were going to win, and they came out of that meeting with the idea, since they were going to win, that Brady should never say anything that had an edge to it or that would be argumentative. And that is what they did to run that thing. That was a decision of the head of the Republican Party in Illinois, all of those people involved. And Brady went along with that crap because I was pounding on him continually to make something about the fact we were going bankrupt on the basis of the pensions that the teachers union, the IEA, bankrupted the state.
Well, I'd have to disagree with you, Jack, because I think your first use of the term manure certainly applies to his campaign.
Manure. I will return to the manure spreader.
Manure spreader is more accurate. Right?
Yeah.
The manure spreader analogy.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll just say something. My grandma used to say to me all the time, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And I think we need leadership that is going to be bold in what they stand for.
You were kind of cute in those days, and she was afraid you were.
She used to put my hair in Shirley Temple curls. You know what? We're going to be back after the break.